The Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Pride Seeds, Cruiser Maxx Vibrance Beans, High Stick NT, and the Manitoba Pulse and Soybean Grower.
Tobin here for RealAgriculture.com, coming today from the London Farm Show, early March, joined by Shawn Brenneman, agronomist, Syngenta.
Yes.
Great to have you here, sir.
Great, thanks, Bern.
Hey, one of the things I want to talk about, everything's been talked about this winter. I thought we'd just explore some of the discussions that you're having with customers at your booth here today. I guess, I don't know if you got the answers to all of these things, but first of all, when is the snow going to melt? When are we going to start planting? And will there be any pests under that snow?
Yeah, great questions, yeah. I'd say my actual predicting the weather for each spring, I'm only about 75%. So my predictions this year are, with the ice that we're seeing over the Great Lakes, 90% cover, we're going to see probably a delayed spring. We're going to see cooler conditions. It's going to buffer that condition. So I'm hoping really we can get going by that first week in May. And I'm saying first week in May we'll be going out in the fields.
Yeah. And we will have white mold at some point, right? I mean, because a lot of discussion about that obviously this winter.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big topic. A lot of discussions on white mold. The inoculum's there from last year with that epidemic outbreak we saw. The inoculum's there. It's all about, are we going to get the right weather conditions, those conducive environments, to really have that same outbreak that we saw in 2014.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah.
Hey, one question that's come up a lot at the booth today, you were telling me, is farmers have been going to a lot of meetings this winter, and Kip Cullers was here.
Yeah.
A man who managed to get 160 bushels per acre out of his soybeans.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been asking you and others around here about, hey, how do I push my soybean yields? So let's talk a little bit about what you're telling people there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the biggest discussion I think we come about, there's no one miracle cure. There's not one factor that you can say, I'm going to go from 50 bushels to 160 by doing X. It's a number of different management practices. It's a number of different factors you have to look at throughout the whole season. And ultimately, I think scouting is one of the biggest aspects of getting out in the field, knowing what's going on week by week, and making sure at the end of the day that crop wants for nothing. That's the key. Making sure that crop's got everything it needs to be successful to set up for the best yield.
What about theoretical yield? What could we get out of a soybean?
Yeah, a lot of people hear 160 bushels, they kind of amazing, 160 bushels, they don't even dream of that type of a number. But theoretically, when you look at all the flowers that a soybean plant can produce, and you look at it, each of those flowers puts out a pod, and each of those pods puts out a number of seeds, we could be up to 350 bushels. That's theoretically what that plant should be able to produce. So 160 bushels is, we're creeping that way, but we still have some room to go for sure.
Now, Kip Cullers was here, and we want to talk about a few things that he mentioned during his presentations. First thing he always talked about was variety selection. Right?
Yes, yeah, very key and crucial. And I think, even looking at Ontario here, when we look at the provincial trial results every year, when you look at all the varieties that are there, there's sometimes, a 20-25% yield index difference between the top and the bottom. So there we're talking 10, 15, 20 bushels difference by just picking the right variety. And I think with that too goes along, what's the right variety for my farm, but then what do I need from a agronomic perspective, whether it be soybean cyst nematode resistance, if it's white mold tolerance, sudden death syndrome tolerance, those are all the other factors that go into that variety selection.
Yeah. And then early planting's got to be part of, if you want to push big yields, right?
Yeah. The sooner we can get those beans in the ground, give them more of an opportunity to put out another set of nodes, and with that set of nodes, then there's a whole new set of flowers, a new set of beans that can actually come from there. So that's really the benefit of that earlier flowering, just trying to get one or two extra sets of nodes and that many more beans per plant.
Yeah. And get some good seed treatment on that.
Yeah, as we start to plant earlier and earlier, it's going to be the right conditions for more of those seedling diseases, maybe some insects. So just make sure you know what's going on the farm, what the potential for some of those pests are, and make sure you've got good quality seed treatment on there.
Let's talk about weed management.
Yeah, that was one of Kip's key points too. And I think for him it was about just making sure that plant has nothing else to interfere with it. And it really correlates well with a lot of the work that Clarence Swanton's been doing lately, in saying that beans, just like as corn, those weeds that emerge with that crop are the most injurious to that crop, and they actually change the physiology of that plant. So beans are no different. I think when you look at that, it just takes 5 grasses per square meter, and you could lose 10% yield loss. Or a weed like Eastern Black Nightshade, if you've got one of those per square meter, you could have up to 14% yield loss. So make sure that the weeds are controlled. Make sure that you don't have any weeds as that crop's emerging, and you should be setting up for the best success.
Right. And as you get into season, fungicides are an option or something you need to think about. And Dave Hooker and a lot of people have been doing a lot of work on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've done a lot of long-term trial work at Syngenta, and I think our research is showing in that 2.5 to 4 bushel, but it's not consistent every yield in every field. So that comes back to get out and scout, know what's there. Are the conditions right for white mold? Should I be spraying a white mold fungicide at flowering, or maybe a little bit later at R2, R3 at that pin bean stage? Are there some leaf diseases there? Is there some frog eye? Is there some septoria? Is there some powdery mildew out there? Should I be putting a fungicide on at that time? So getting out, scouting your fields, know what's going on, and making sure that you just leave that plant set up for the best success.
So you mightn't get 160 bushels, but you should be able to push your yield.
If we can just continually trend up as we've done the last 30 years, we look at the trend line, we keep gaining about 3/4 of a bushel a year. We keep on that track, another 10, 15 years, we'll be there shortly.
So hey, thanks for your time. We'll be back maybe in a week or two looking for your weather forecast.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bernie.